Hello! So about a month ago, maybe slightly more, Kirsty did a video about being a faddy reader, and I could totally relate to what she was saying. Maybe not to such an extreme, but I was like, yep, that's me. Actually, all the things she's talking about sound amazing. I am pro being a faddy reader. I think the best way to learn about something or to really enjoy a topic or kind of book is to just throw yourself into it and read a whole lot, to binge. I am definitely a binge reader. Ever since I first started reading, I have been a binge reader. Now, when I was a young kid, my favourite author was Enid Blyton, and basically my whole life was the Enid Blyton fad. I read all her children's books, no matter what age they were supposed to be for. I read them, I loved them. When I'd have finished reading them, I'd start over again. That was my life. In terms of non-fiction, I definitely went through massive fads. There was the jewellery making fad, during which I used to get the same 5 or 6 books out of the library again and again and again. Paper crafting, similar, got loads of books out of paper crafting. Hardly actually did any paper crafting. Spy books was another one. After I read Harriet the Spy and got the Fun Facts Spy edition, I became obsessed with spies. I got loads of books on spies. I got them for birthdays and for Christmas. I used to go to the library and get more books out. I loved it. Big obsession. Then when I became a teenager, I went through some more phases. There was the teenage self-help guide phase, where I'd read books like, there was one called Girl Power, which I really loved, and there was one by Ross Asquith called The Teenage Warrior's Guide to Life, because she used to do a series of fiction books called The Teenage Warrior. Loved them, read them. As soon as the fad was over, that was it. So it was a Jacqueline Wilson fad. My best friend encouraged me to read the Dragon Riders of Pern books by Anne McCaffrey, and I loved them, and I got a bit obsessed with dragons and started reading any books with dragons in. I read some quite rubbish books about dragons, and there's others where I just read the first in the series and never bothered with the rest because the phase was over. I tried to get this short story book out about dragons once out of the library, and I remember being really angry and disappointed because I didn't have enough space left on my card. After that, I had a big urban fantasy phase. While I was looking for books about dragons, I sort of stumbled across urban fantasy because at that time they were kind of in the same section. And so I read a lot of books about vampires. And I read a lot of Thurston series. I've only finished or read up to a point in a couple of series. There were a lot I read the first of, or I read like a short story collection and thought, I'll read some more by this author, and then never got around to it because the fad was over. That was it. When I was at university, I used to binge on my favourite topics. This was, like I'm saying, a good thing because it was really helpful. Like, if I really found a topic that came up in a lecture really interesting, I'd go read loads of stuff about it, and which, you know, you have to do for essays, so it was great. I totally advise doing this. One of my big tips for essay writing at university would be to look at your reading list, look at your your module outline where it describes what the lectures and seminars are going to be. If you can, look at your list of essay questions as soon as possible so you can decide which topics you're interested in. And the sooner you decide which topics you're interested in, the better, because you can start reading and you can read massively widely in that section, and you will be so prepared for writing that essay. It'll be brilliant. Anyway, back to the topic of faddy reading. I also binged on certain authors. I went for a massive Angela Carter phase. I read most of her books in a couple of months. That was also tied with my fairy tale phase, which was partly because I had to write an essay, or decided to write an essay about fairy tales for university. Also just because I really loved it. I read far more books than I actually needed to do that particular project. But hey, I loved it. I still love it. That's one of the things I would say about my fads, is quite often they become a permanent part of my reading preferences. I tend to not repeat being into them into such a massive extent, where it's all I read, or where I just spent ages finding more books and collecting loads and loads of books about one particular subject, but they do tend to fit into my usual thing. I still love fairy tales, I still love like Angela Carter, and I still love the topics that I got really obsessed by when I was at uni. Still love them, they've just, you know, slotted into my regular diet being contemporary YA. I do tend to go through fads of reading contemporary YA as well. I will go through like a phase where for months that'll be all I read, won't touch anything else because nothing will seem as good as contemporary YA. Then I go back to normal and I alternate other things. I have a more diverse range, and then I'll go back to having another phase of only contemporary YA is good enough. One other thing I catch myself doing is planning future fads. Sometimes I see book lists on certain subjects and I think, wow, I'd love to read about that. I mean, I don't really have time to delve into another fad at the moment. Books by Australian authors, books by African authors, non-fiction about women in bands. That's one of the things which I always want to read more about, but have not got around to it. And yeah, I love people's lists of what they have read in their own fads or their own kind of permanent interests. I just love it. I love being a faddy reader. And all I can say now to finish is that some of Kirsty's fads sounded absolutely amazing. That Sarah Manning fad, I wish I could have had a proper Sarah Manning fad. The Aussie YA fad sounds amazing too. Like a couple of authors who I really like are Australian, and I'd love to read more YA from Australia. So yeah, that's another one on my upcoming fads list. Let me know about your fads in the comments. Don't forget to go watch Kirsty's video as well and leave her comments as well. And you'll see me again in a couple of weeks. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Bookish Brits and follow us on all the social media. Bye!